The thoughts, feelings, and opinions expressed in this work are solely those of the participants and is in no way meant to represent an entire demographic of people. This work is meant to serve as a doorway to encourage discussion among mental health professionals, parents, adolescents, and advocates around the issues of mental health, depression, anxiety, societal impacts, women of color, cultural pride, support systems, and hair. Living in New York City, all of us are shown images of beauty at every turn. For women with naturally curly, kinky, or coily hair, the expectation to wear it straight can come from many different directions. One major influence is society, specifically the media. Movies, television, and magazines are huge societal influences on what's considered beautiful.
I think there are several factors that go into being beautiful. One is long hair, straight hair.
Actually, I honestly think that it's who you are is how you answer that. I think that if you're part of one culture, you answer that question in a different way than you're part of another culture. I think that if you are part of the majority, being white, Caucasian, I think that you would look at it as the media would display beauty being, thin, physique, thin, how your face is structured, plastic surgery, things like that. But I think that if you are a minority, I think that you would say that the media says that beauty is depending upon what the complexion of your skin is, the hues of your skin. The lighter you are, the closer you are to being part of the majority, the more beautiful you are.
My experience with what the media portrays as being beautiful is generally young people who are thin, with long or fine hair, and light skin or white skin.
And I believe with those combinations, that's what the media portrays to be a beautiful woman. Though I am finding that I think culture and the society is accepting natural hair more. But if you have natural hair, you have to make sure that you're also skinny. You can't have like natural hair and be a full figure woman and be in the media and be considered beautiful.
The type of media outlets that I believe promote these kind of ideas of beauty are definitely magazines. Radio, it's kind of hard because it's radio. You can't really, it's mostly the sound of your voice and radio, but I definitely think that the juggernaut of these images or these descriptions of images of beauty are definitely magazines.
I think anything that is a vehicle or a channel to the consumer, you will find that they will focus on their idea of what beauty is.
I think that so it's print media, it's radio. You can't see it in radio, but oftentimes it's described. Television images, certainly.
But I definitely believe that magazines, I don't want to say what magazines, but I definitely believe that magazines. But they have a goal, and their goal is readership. I mean, their goal is to get people to read their magazines. So what are you going to put on there? The hottest thing, Kim Kardashian, Jennifer Lopez, if you can get her, you're going to put those kind of people on those kind of magazines. I only say magazines because that's what everyone's looking at. Yes, television and movies, people watch television and movies, but I think it's so easy and attainable to get these magazines that sit on the stands at grocery stores. Kids see them, everyone's watching them. Yes, television and movies play a big role in that, but really, these magazines are the ones that are magazines like Glamour, magazines like Cosmopolitan, Vogue. These magazines are representing an unrealistic attempt at beauty because it's not real. It's photoshopped, it's glossed over, it's not true. On television and on film, it's more believable that it would be because you're actually sitting down with that person, you're actually seeing them on camera, you're actually seeing them. But in these photos and these magazines and stuff, it's just not real. And I'm harping on magazines because I think that that's where people are getting that false sense of security. I think that's where it is in the magazines. Because if you see Kim Kardashian on a magazine and she looks one way, and then you see her on another magazine and she looks slightly different or slimmer or whatever, it's just not. People are going and they're trying to get, I want the Kim Kardashian look. I want my butt to look like Kim Kardashian's butt. I want it to be nice and round and fluffy like her ass is. You know, and that's just not, it's like, you're not going to get that. It just doesn't exist. Like, it's, because honestly, Kim Kardashian may not even have a real fleshy, like flat butt. It just may be Photoshop.
So as I said again, it goes to the 3-part. It's the straight hair, light skin, well, straight long hair, light skinned, and your size. And of those 3, I think I have 2. So I'm definitely light skinned, and I definitely have long straight hair, though it's natural, and most people don't think that, but it is natural. But in terms of my size, I'm more full figured. So of the 3, I have the 2, and I work with what I have, and I use it, you know, to my advantage in whatever media. And so for me, I have 2 of the 3, and I think the first time that I realized was when I was a freshman in college, because that's really when I started to go out to the clubs and to lounges and to events and really start dating on a serious level. And I would always notice that if I was with a group of women and we were all heavier set, then I would get the attention because I was light skinned and had the long hair. But if I was with a group of women where they were skinnier and had the light skin and long hair, then I might not get as much attention as others.
Oh, personally, I think I've always felt like I'm different. As far as my physique goes and my personal sense of beauty, I never ever felt like I was pretty at all. I probably discovered I was pretty about 2 weeks ago in therapy. But yeah, I think even as a child, growing up in Detroit, wearing a Jerry curl, I don't think I ever felt like I was, you know, I was either too tall or I was, at that time, I was too thin. I walked funny, or, you know, I looked funny. I definitely didn't have, and if we think of what that traditional sense of beauty is, of having a straight nose, having very European features. Well, I obviously don't have European features. You know, I have a wider nose, I have a wider face, I have a darker complexion. But growing up, that was what was beautiful, is having the European look, you know, having a straight nose, having very fair skin, you know, being very thin, like those things were very popular. So I always felt like I was on the outside looking in, always.
And then I always also found that if I wore my hair straight and long, a different type of guy would come up to me. Versus if I wore it natural and out, another type of guy would come. And I'm just being honest. So if I wore my hair, if I wet it and I wear it out, you know, we say Lion King like, but if I did that, a lot of times men who had dreads would come up to me, more earthy, natural type of guys. With the guys who were more, you know, I would think, you know, suited up, more white collar, would not.
I think that my look is different from what the mainstream media portrays as beautiful because I have dark skin, because I'm not tall, because I'm petite but curvy. And I started realizing that I was different in a good way when my father was stationed in Germany. So I was probably about 5 years old. And when we would go out to the countryside, German people would rub my cheeks and want to touch us because a lot of them had never seen black people before. And so I felt different but special. And when we moved back to the States, it was then, I would say I was probably around 8 years old or so, that I started, my differences were being pointed out, but in a negative way. It was that I wasn't thin enough, or that I was a dark-skinned black girl, or that my hair was nappy. And so as I got older, the differences made me less comfortable, and it was more frustrating and harder to understand.
I think I was I was in Catholic school, and I was 8 or 9 around the time my father passed away. I was 8 or 9, and all the kids in Catholic school are white. And at least in my class, they were white. I was the only brown person. And I had a kid come up to me. There was this kid who came up to me. I'll never forget him. His name was Michael. And he came up to me and he said, "You look just like Michael Jackson, and Michael Jackson is ugly." And I went home devastated. I was crying, and I went home, and my mother said, "When you go back to school tomorrow, you tell him that Michael Jackson is rich and famous, and you'd be lucky if you look like Michael." So I went back to school, and I told that kid that. And he left me alone, but I didn't really believe that. Like, I didn't really believe that what she said about me was true. Like, I didn't really believe that, because I didn't want to look like Michael Jackson. For one thing, I don't want to look like a man. Michael Jackson's a boy.
Knowing that there are differences has affected me in such that I've struggled with getting comfortable with myself. I don't think that I've ever had terrible self-esteem, but even in my own family, I was compared to my sister, who was taller and thinner than I was, so I was made to feel stubby and chubby. And but I knew that I wasn't, or I had a feeling that I wasn't. And in dating, I've chosen to date of different races and cultures and ethnicities, and it's interesting because in some of those cases, the people who looked most like me made me more self-aware and self-conscious about my look, and that's discomforting.
Particularly with my work, I do believe that the straight hair look helps. I don't think corporate America is, though they're getting there, they're not quite to the point where they accept natural hair. And my appearance is what sells. That's what closes the deals, because they want to know that this image or this person that they feel comfortable with, they want to give money to or sell a project to.
I think that having the feeling that you look, because of how you look, that you are a lesser person is a very devastating feeling. And you walk around with a slouch. I can say personally that I have slouched almost a good portion of my life because I felt that I've been inferior because of how I look, because of either my weight or my structure of my face or my hair, many things. I definitely know that the feeling of it is that you feel like you don't belong on the planet, that you feel lesser than because you don't look like everyone else. Even though we all don't look alike, we all obviously have different looks of beauty, but to not have that essential characteristic that's of the majority, and have other people look at you like you are not part of the majority, like you don't look like the majority, and that makes you lesser than, is a very devastating feeling.
So because I have natural hair, and depending on the humidity outside, or it's rain, if it rains, I have to therefore get my hair done more often. So it becomes it's a more expensive proposition. Versus I probably wouldn't have to spend, as much money on my hair if I could just go natural. But because of the business that I'm in, society hasn't yet accepted that. So I do have to, if I feel that my hair isn't done, I'll have to make an appointment, or I might have to make sure that I put a little extra, shine on it to make sure that it's straightened out. I have to take extra precautions that I think a person who has natural hair might not have to. And I have to think about that in advance. And I do believe that if my hair I felt wasn't long and straight and beautiful when I go to a meeting, it might affect not my self-confidence in myself, but the confidence of my pitching the business and they're feeling comfortable. Because that's what it's about. It's about the person to whom I'm selling the work feeling comfortable with me, and there's a certain image that they're more comfortable with than not.
Feeling outside of what mainstream would consider beautiful can raise a number of different emotional and mental challenges for some women. Having a strong support network of family and friends is important to reinforce self-esteem and confidence.
Some of the challenges that I faced, and as a child, the magic age for us to have relaxers was 9 years old. So before 9, my mother cornrowed my hair and put pretty ribbons in our hair, but would sometimes complain that my hair was too soft, and so it would be frizzy, and sometimes she would say it would look nappy. And then I got a relaxer, which, quite frankly, oftentimes it was uncomfortable and painful. I had a Jerry curl phase. Who didn't? Who didn't? So I had a Jerry curl phase, which made me a little self-conscious because of the chemicals that were in my hair. It was wet and would leave stains behind sometimes.
Before my relaxer, I wore my hair in a Jerry curl. That's right, I said it. I wore a Jerry curl. And you know what? I'm gonna try to be proud of that Jerry curl, because for so long, for so many years, I was not proud of that Jerry curl. In fact, 5 minutes ago, I wasn't proud of that Jerry curl, but I made the decision that I'm going to be proud of that Jerry curl, because you know what? That Jerry curl shaped my life, and that's that. I'm going to be proud of that Jerry curl. Yeah, I wore a Jerry curl.
Then I went back to having a full-on relaxer, and it was hard to maintain it because my hair did frizz in bad weather, and so I often had bad hair days. And about 6 years ago, decided to go natural, and now I'm playing around with a lot of different looks, and sometimes my challenge is just trying to get comfortable looking the way I look.
One time I went camping, right? Now, sleeping next to a person with a Jerry curl is like the worst thing anybody could ever do. But because me and Ronnie was the only two people with Jerry curls, we had to be bed partners. So we slept next to each other, and all night long I could just smell activator. It just made me nauseous in my stomach. Oh, I hate that Jerry curl. But I'm proud of myself that I've come to terms with it.
So the hardest challenge with maintaining my hair is the fact that it is natural, and depending on my level of activity, depending on the weather, it will blow up, and that look just isn't acceptable in my network. My extended network, my close network, they love me for who I am, it doesn't matter, but my extended network, my associates. And so there is some, anxiety about, trying to get appointments in, and, does my hair look okay? There's some anxiety about stepping out of my house. If it's raining, it's better for me to wrap it and put a hat on it. But if I'm stepping out of my house, depending on if I have a meeting, I then have to go to the lobby and take the hat off and brush it down and make sure that I'm acceptable, which means having a mirror in my purse, which means leaving earlier. So there's a lot more planning, involved with that. And that, I think, would be the biggest, anxiety moments that I have with my hair.
When I've received pushback from having natural hair, interestingly, it's been from men of color who have told me that their preference was women with longer hair, be it their natural hair or not. And I married a white man who I met when my hair was natural, and even when I straighten it now, he actually prefers it to be natural, and so it's interesting.
When I met my husband, I actually had natural hair. I was wearing an afro at the time, and I was loving that afro. And afros give you confidence. They do. Afros say, this is a sister who walks through the world, who doesn't mind, who's not trying to assimilate. She's not trying to be like Beyonce. She's not trying to be like anybody else. She's trying to be her. She's just who she is. Afros say freedom. So I was wearing an afro when I met my husband, and he really liked to, ground his sister. I think he actually cried when I got a relaxer. Actually, I think I saw tears when I came home and said, "Hey, babe, what you think of my hair?" And he was like, "It's beautiful," but secretly on the inside, he was crying. He loved that afro.
Again, different types of men approach me depending on how I wear my hair. So if I wear it out in curly and more natural, there's just a different type of guy that will come up to me. If I wear it straight, I do find that most men actually look at my hair and my head more so than my face. So they'll have a conversation with me, but they're looking here or they're looking here. And then they zoom into my face like, oh, hey, oh, wait, yeah, there is a person, by that. And then sometimes I'll find, a man will try to sneak and get a little touch of it. And then he'll ask, about my hair and then be pleasantly surprised if he finds out that it's real. So those are kind of the dynamics that I find with dating. It's not necessarily pushback, but it's very interesting to kind of see the interaction between me and him, or really my hair and him.
I have received some pushback from work and from certain of my family members and peers when I decided to go natural. Working and living in a culture and environment where the majority of the people are Caucasian and or women with processed hair or straight hair, when I made the decision to go natural, I knew I was taking a risk, but it's what I chose to do. But I would also, when I had those interactions with colleagues, tend to wear my hair pulled back and in ponytails, some ways that would sort of disguise it so that, quite frankly, I think that they would feel more comfortable or less threatened or think that I wasn't making some sort of political statement, which isn't what I was trying to do. Some of my friends think that it's still quite risky because it's something that for many, many years we didn't consider and that we didn't do.
So I work in corporate America, and although it's not written in the handbook that you get from HR when you first start your job, it's not written in the handbook that your look has to be, your hair look, I should say, has to be a certain way. It's sort of implied that you should look a certain way. Like, I'll be honest, the difference between what I do and if you look at me and you look at my other colleagues, and the difference between people who work in the mailroom or people who work in the cafeteria, there's a difference. There's a stark difference. So you don't, not to sound rude, but for myself personally, I wanted and desperately wanted to assimilate myself into what everyone else looked like and how everyone else was looking, hair-wise, how everyone else was looking. And most of the women that I work with and the men that I work with are clean cut. Clean cut meaning they don't have natural hair. Their hair, if it is natural, it's not natural. It's either, if it is natural, it's press and comb, but it's straight. And I really think that that's the point, that it's straight. And I wanted my hair to be straight as well. And my mother, growing up in the 60s and the 70s, mostly the 60s and 70s, she has this idea in her mind too as to what corporate America would be looking for, and it's that you have straight hair. So she felt like it would hold me back. Honestly, it would hold me back if I had natural hair, being dreadlock, like the dreadlocks that I had, and so I made a decision to cut it. But I do feel like that there is this underlining tone in corporate America that there's a certain look that you should have, and if you don't have that look, then you are automatically associated with people who have lower income jobs than you do. And that may impact your promotion. And even if it doesn't, you don't want it to, because you're already different enough by being a minority.
I have not received any pushback from family or friends. They're very supportive of my hair and all of the beautifulness that comes along with it, whether it's straight or natural. However, at work, I have, for instance, when I worked for a major consulting firm for 9 years, my mentor, who was also an African-American woman who spent a lot of money getting her hair permed, and she gets it done every week, if not twice a week, if my hair wasn't, straight to a T, if there was one piece, she would say, come on, now you really need to go get that together. Or if there was one young woman who actually worked for the firm who had natural hair and would often wear it braided, and people would talk about it and say, oh my gosh, she gets paid enough to go get her hair done. And it was just a choice that she made that, she wanted to not only wear her hair natural, she wanted to wear it braided, 2 braids. And there were conversations more so from the African-American employees than the non-African-American employees. Now, I'm not going to say that the non-African-American employees accepted it though I don't really think they were thinking about that as much because she was more of a junior level employee. They were more so interested in her quality of work. I did find that whether they were African American or non-African American, once you got to a senior level position, the appraisal feedback will come back interesting in terms of this person needs to have more of a mature look. And it had everything to do with the hair, which meant it needed to be straight, not natural, and definitely not braided.
People in my family have been mostly supportive about my decision to go natural. However, most of that support came after I had a cousin who was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was only when she went through chemotherapy and lost her hair and started growing it back out natural, which is something I did for years, that the women in my family especially started to accept the natural look. Just because she wasn't able to keep her long, beautiful hair that she had before. And for whatever reason, she didn't process it. So when it started growing back, it was her natural hair, and she's beautiful. And so I think that in my family, especially, people started seeing just the beauty that we just naturally have and how different we are.
There have been a couple of moments where I've gone wild and crazy, and my mother would say, "Really? You need to comb your hair." It wasn't, it's never your hair looks crazy. It's just like, can you comb your hair? And I'm like, well, it's curly when it's wet. So no, I have combed my hair, and this is just how it looks. So, but it's all in jokes, you know, from that. So they've been supportive, and I'm very happy with having naturally straight hair. I would love to not have to straighten it, but it's just the beast of the business that I'm in, so I accept it.
I will honestly say that my family hated on my locks from the first day that I got them. And I mean hated on them. And I know my locks look good. I knew they did. I knew they looked real good. I just knew that. I just had that feeling and that confidence in myself that when I walked into a room, they looked good. And besides, other people who I'm close to told me they looked good. But I did. But my family, on the other hand, they did not feel that. They were not feeling that at all. My family are, you know, traditional black women, mostly black women, who are from Detroit. You know, they have this they have their own idea of beauty, of what beauty is, and dreadlocks are not included in that. They think dreadlocks are dirty looking, and at least that's the feeling that I always got from them. So I never felt like, they always felt like they hated my locks. They hated my natural hair.
Some of the emotions that I've gone through when going through the different changes in my hair include bouts of not feeling as confident when I felt I was having a bad hair day, whatever that means. And usually it just means, for me, it just means sort of how I'm feeling inside, and that's what I came to realize. I think that when I first cut my hair, I knew that my face was out there, so I felt like I had to just make sure that I looked nice and had nice earrings on, that sort of thing. But over time, it's just become a matter of confidence. I feel confident in who I am, and hair is just hair, but it's mine.
And so the moment when I actually was getting this position, and when I was actually getting a position in corporate America, that I had to change my look, I felt like was the greatest day of my mama's life. She was like, "We're gonna cut them locks." And the day that I actually cut my locks actually was I got cold feet, and we were in a barber's chair, and my mother was like, "Think about your job. Think about your job, baby. Sir, cut that head. It's okay. Just think about that job." From the moment I sat in the barber's chair, actually from the moment I made the decision to cut my dreads off, I felt regret. I felt like I was cutting a piece of my soul off. I know that's over dramatic, but that's how I felt. That's my real feeling. I felt like it was cutting a piece of who I was, because you see, when I moved to New Orleans and I was hanging out with those sisters who inspired me to get dreadlocks, I felt like I was really finding myself. And when I decided to go natural, I felt like I was finding out who I was. You know, I wasn't putting on anything. I wasn't trying to assimilate into a traditional style of beauty, being a European style of beauty. I was going back to my natural roots, to my African roots. And so that's why I felt so emotional when I finally did cut them off, because I felt like I was going back to assimilating. Now I'm going back to putting on a face, putting on a facade that maybe isn't even really me. You know? So yeah, I did. I felt a lot of regret, actually.
Wouldn't it be great if people could feel free to be who they are and appear how they choose, without real or perceived repercussions from society? Everyone has their own brand of beauty to be celebrated and cherished as unique.
What I like best about my hair is that it's just mine. It frustrates me sometimes, and I'd be lying if I said that I didn't look at some people with natural hair and wish that my hair was just as curly as theirs or looked just as soft as theirs. But at the end of the day, this is what God gave me, and I'm happy with it. And I look forward to trying different styles, and I still straighten it from time to time, just with the blow dryer though, no chemicals. And what I like best is just that it's me.
I actually love the fact that I think it's versatile, meaning, you know, if I go to India, I can fit right in. You know, if I'm around my colleagues here, I can, you know, fit right in. And I do love the fact that if I just splash water on it, I can go from straight to curly. So I do really, really love that. I love the fact that I feel that it's very manageable, meaning if I have a bad day, I just put a comb through it and I don't have to do, you know, much more about that. And we all like attention, so my hair gives me attention, particularly from males, so I do appreciate that as well. And I like the fact that I can have a perm look, but it be natural.
You know what I love most about my hair? I love how full it is. I love how full it is. It doesn't grow very long. Like, it's not, oh, it's funny because when I had my dreadlocks, it was very long. But now that my hair is relaxed, it doesn't grow as long as, you know, it used to grow. So, but what I love the most about it is that it's full. I love that it's full. It's full hair. And when you look at it, you think, oh wow, it's not very long, but it's full. It feels like it's full of life and spunk, just like Michelle.
So if there's one piece of advice I could give young women about your hair and the image, quite honestly, it would be, you gotta abide by the rules, quite honestly. If you want to be on TV and they like straight hair, if you want to make it, you're gonna have to have straight hair until you get to a level where you can change the norm. Do you know what I'm saying? Till you get to a senior level position and you change the norm. In my case, if I want to have my own business and portray a certain image, this is the look that I have to have because it works. Now, that's just, you know, top tier consulting. If I'm doing something else, or if I'm working in retail and I have my own business, or maybe, you know, I have a restaurant, it might not matter as much. But in my business, it does matter. Image does matter because you're selling your work and you're selling yourself.
It's easier said than done, but it is just to be confident, just to feel good about yourself, and to not worry about how you compare to others, because it's always going to be what's on the inside that's going to reflect, and that's what's going to matter in the end.
First, I would say to parents, parents, when your children are reading these magazines, make sure you're clear with them about what it is they're reading. Make sure that what they're seeing is not as a perception of truth, but really, truth, beauty, all those things are in the eye of the beholder. They're all about you. They're all on what you make it. So I would have to say that parents really, really need to emphasize to their children that beauty is, it's really in the eye of the beholder.
The biggest lesson that I learned is that how you feel comes from what's inside. And other people can influence how you feel, but you're in charge of how they're going to influence you. And so I'm a pretty confident person, and I'm more confident than I thought that I was.
You just have to decide the image that you want and the image that you want to accept and go with it. I've also learned that perms are not for me. I don't ever want to get another perm. That one year I got one was a huge disaster. And, you know, not everybody can put a good perm in your hair. So you can have one bad experience and then your hair is shot. So the biggest lesson is, for me personally, is I like the natural look, no perms.
It doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter. the world will keep spinning. You will still continue to pay taxes. Your life will be fine. But it honestly doesn't matter in the end. I mean, people are starving in Africa, you know. Hair is hair. When you die, just sits there anyway. So, yeah, I would definitely say that it doesn't matter, honestly. In the end, it's who you are. It's the core of who you are that really matters. The kind of person that you are, the giving heart that you have. Those are really the things that matter in life, not hair.